Was it any wonder that people are increasingly upset, nervous, and unhappy with the direction of this administration and, of course, the economy? Joining us tonight is the author of Do the Right Thing, our own Mike Huckabee. Huckabee on weekends right here. How are you?
I'm doing great, Sean.
Well, Governor, I got to tell you something. 8.1% unemployment.
Yeah.
This is now to the point. Did you notice the president, all he seems to want is adulation? He went out on the road again today, on the road Obama. He seems to be addicted to the praise. To hail 25 jobs on a day we find out we lost
25 government jobs. Let's remind ourselves. I'm not minimizing. I'm glad those people all got employed. But the fact that the stimulus package, we've now spent, what, $800 billion, and so far he can go to Columbus and say we have 25 government jobs to show for it. It costs, there were more staff people on Air Force One to make the trip than got jobs in Columbus, Ohio.
Wait, what a great way to, that's a great perspective. Now, I also hear he's going on a European trip and a sort of a European spring break. And I'm thinking he goes almost every day out there to talk about something or sell some new program. I'm thinking, when does he ever stop and do some real work and think about what he's actually doing? Have you made that observation?
You know, I understand his need to go out and try to sell the program, but he needs a program to sell. I'm not so frustrated that he would go sell something. I think he needs to get some products in his briefcase before he goes out there. What we have is a president that essentially every time he opens his mouth about the economy, the markets tank. His Treasury Secretary can't get a staff. I think they're going to have to refer him to H&R Block to get his taxes done.
No, TurboTax. TurboTax.
Well, but that didn't work for him.
That is a good point.
He had to turn it over to somebody. He couldn't do TurboTax.
All right. Well, we also hear last night that Nancy Pelosi, Harry Reid, and Dick Durbin, they had to kick their staffs out of her office, and they're cursing at each other, throwing it back and forth over the omnibus spending bill. Because Harry Reid couldn't get enough votes in the Senate.
Thank goodness.
Thank goodness. But
thank goodness. And I'm happy to see that some Democrats with a conscience and perhaps an election coming up, not to be overly cynical, but seriously, I think some of them are people of conscience. Let me give credit. I think Russ Feingold, Ben Nelson, Evan Bayh are all people who conscientiously look at this bill and say, we can't support that. And the more Democrats who begin to sift through it and listen to their constituents back home, I think that there's going to be a growing number who will just say, I can't support it.
Well, if we look at this disastrous week, and I'm reading people's email, and I am getting, people are getting very worried, nervous, concerned. And I'll tell you one other thing that's emerging, Governor, is anger. 8.1% unemployment, all the earmarks galore, massive spending, 8% increase in this budget. People are getting angry. I don't blame them, because you know what? They're watching half their retirement go away, and they seem like they're helpless at this point. Do you see anything that they can do to maybe get Barack Obama to, you know, live up to his promise of no earmarks?
They've got to melt the phone lines of the Senate and the House. They have to let their representatives know that this is going to be an intolerable situation, and they need to let the president know that his credibility is on the line. He was adamant that he would not sign a larded-up pork bill, and he's about to put his signature on it if we're not careful.
Let's go to the videotape, and let's show our audience at home. Now, maybe it's just a campaign promise, no lobbyists in his administration, no earmarks.
I will also go through the federal budget line by line, eliminating programs that no longer work.
When you've been taking all these earmarks when it's convenient, and then suddenly you're the champion anti-earmark person, that's not change. Come on.
The truth is, our earmark system, what's called pork barrel spending, in Washington is fraught with abuse. It badly needs reform.
Absolutely, we need earmark reform, and when I'm president, I will go line by line to make sure that we are not spending money unwisely.
We are going to ban all earmarks, the process by which individual members insert pet projects without review.
Why does he get
it's the tail of the tape.
Outrage?
You have to say that if Barack Obama doesn't veto this bill, and it is a bill that has 8,500 earmarks, then he has a lot of splaining to do to the American people. And a campaign promise ought to be something that you fulfill, or else you start giving away your political capital. It's early in his administration, and I think it would be a huge mistake. This is not his bill. This is Nancy Pelosi's bill, and he's got to stand up to her. Otherwise, we might as well be talking about President Pelosi.
Well, I think that's a good... Who is in charge? He's out giving speeches. She's controlling everything and fighting with Harry Reid over this. His budget, this is nearly $4 trillion. We're going to bankrupt the country here. It more than than doubles the national debt than all presidents from Washington to George W. Bush. Did you know that?
It's a stunning amount of money. And the fact that we're now talking trillions, not even billions anymore, most Americans have a hard time getting their hands around just the amount of money we're describing.
Well, let me see if I can put it this way, and I'll get your reaction to this. If we were to confiscate, for all of you out there that make $75,000 a year, for every American that makes $75,000 a year, confiscate every penny they make, we still can't pay for the spending that's going on.
That's when people need to understand. And, you know, the people under $75,000, a lot of them have the attitude, you know, this tax isn't going to hit me. But we need to remember something. If your boss gets hit with a tax and he's got less money to run his business, guess who he lays off first? Do you think he lays himself off? No. It's the guy at the bottom end of the totem pole. Bosses don't lay themselves off if they're the business owner. They're going to lay the person off who is well under that $75,000.
Well, what does this mean? Michael Boskin made a comment. He said, with the new and expanded refundable tax credits, that we're going to see the fraction of taxpayers that pay no taxes. That means people in this country that pay zero taxes go from 50% to 38%, which means that we have the potential of a majority, permanent voting majority, with no stake in controlling the cost of government. What does that mean? Does that mean people are going to say, well, I don't have to pay, what do I care?
Well, I love Margaret Thatcher's quote. She says the problem with socialism is that sooner or later you run out of other people's money.
Yeah.
And that's what I see beginning to happen, is that we create this incredible imbalance. A book that I would recommend people to read, other than mine, of course, is a book called Why Democracies Perish, written by Jean-Francois Revel. He's a French communist, so this is not some right-winger. But a French communist, Jean-Francois Revel, and the basic point of the book is democracies perish when the people in the democracy realize they can vote for themselves benefits out of a public treasury. And when they vote enough, there's no one left to sustain it.
All right, Governor, congrats on the book. We'll see you Saturday and Sunday night on Huckabee. And by the way, this Sunday night, Greta Van Susteren is